There seems to be a lot of suggestions out there about how to best manage labor relations. Some are reasonable, while others seem absolutely silly. That's why I wanted to cut through the clutter to provide practical tips that I have found through years of labor relations experiences. Let's take a look at some important tips for managing labor relations that I've learned along my journey. By no means is this an exhaustive list, but it's meant to provide some practical insight to managing labor relations well. First, know the lingo. Second, collaborate through labor management committees. Third, negotiate well. And fourth, know your resources. Let's take a look. Let's start by defining a few important terms: collective bargaining, unfair labor practices, grievance, mediation, and arbitration. Collective bargaining is bilateral negotiation between labor and management over wages, terms, and conditions of employment. The result of collective bargaining is a document specifying each side's respective rights and obligations, known as a collective bargaining agreement. Unfair labor practices are activities of a labor union or employer that are judged to be contrary to the intent of laws regulating collective bargaining. Failure to bargain in good faith, for example, is an unfair labor practice. But unfair labor practices could include interfering, restraining, or coercing workers' rights to organize, dominating or seeking to control the union, discriminating against workers for union activity, terminating a worker for that union activity, or refusing to bargain in good faith with a duly elected union. Simply, a grievance is a dispute or disagreement as to the interpretation or application of specific terms and conditions of employment as specified by a collective bargaining agreement. Grievance procedures can vary depending on contract language. Therefore, it's always important to have the most up-to-date agreement at your ready. Mediation is a method of resolving disputes, known as alternative dispute resolution, in labor negotiations by employing a neutral third party, a mediator, to assist the parties in reaching an agreement by maintaining communication and encouraging them to move forward towards common ground. A second form of alternative dispute resolution, arbitration, is a method of resolving disputes by employing a neutral third party, in this case an arbitrator, to review the facts and make a decision that's binding on both parties. There are two types of arbitration. In interest arbitration, the arbitrator intervenes in the process to resolve an impasse in negotiations. Secondly, grievance arbitration occurs during the life of the contract that results from an employee filing a grievance alleging that his or her rights, as specified in the contract, have been violated. After an independent arbitrator is selected, in accordance with rules governing arbitration grievances, both sides will submit their argument in writing to the arbitrator regarding the specific grievance. The arbitrator then has 30 days to submit a decision in writing to both parties. The decision is binding to the employer, the union, and employees. Now let's take a look at labor management committees. All too often, the only formal means of communication between labor and management is the contractual grievance procedure and contract negotiations. Labor management committees provide for positive and productive engagement of interested parties in realizing the best possible outcomes in public service. Here's some tips. Establish a clear and shared purpose, such as stable relations, conflict resolution, and joint processes. Develop collaboration through joint chairs from management and labor to form your committee leadership. Increase collaboration by developing agendas through a process that invites all members to place discussion items on an open agenda that's then vetted by those joint chairs. And build vulnerability-based trust. Be willing to be vulnerable, share weaknesses, and admit mistakes to create an environment where being open comes natural. Now let's take a look at 9 strategies to negotiate well. Admittedly, there are many strategies and tactics out there when it comes to collective bargaining. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, as each group and situation will be different. However, there are a few general tips in my experience in negotiating agreements well with labor groups. Let's take a look. Break it up. Following initial proposals, break negotiation up into pieces. Compartmentalize as much as possible to reach agreement on individual issues. At times, this can help reach agreement on certain items and encourage progress towards more complex matters. Take control. When managing negotiations, offer to provide administrative management of the process. Offer to schedule time and location of negotiations as an example. When possible, have the labor group present proposals first. This will work to give you some control over the process, helping to set the stage for positive outcomes. Cost everything. Costing anticipated and real proposals is critical for your decision making. Not only will this be a valuable tool at the table, but costing analysis will guide conversations with your board and elected officials. Every term and condition of employment that has a financial cost should be costed. Accuracy and support in this data and analysis is critical. Create a bargaining book. This is your negotiation Bible. A strong bargaining book includes all the data you need for negotiation. The content outlines your targets and bottom lines, defining each. The book should contain current and proposed language. Analysis should include financial implications and legal issues. Multi-year forecasting is particularly important to balance service delivery and political realities. Have the right people at the table. The right people on your team, including HR, directors, and legal counsels, are paramount. The chief negotiator needs to be the decision maker and have the authority to do so. However, each member of the team must play an active role in creating a collaborative environment for negotiation, actively listening and participating in conversation equally. Meet in the middle. Everyone wants to walk away feeling like they got a good deal. Think about your last car deal. Leave yourself room for an initial offer. Have a target, what you hope to get, and a bottom line, what you're willing to walk away for. Be prepared. Actually, be over-prepared, because there's really not such a thing in labor relations. Fact of the matter is, the party with more facts has leverage. Participation means that you use the facts, not feelings. Preparation means that you not only have data, but the information is accurate and well supported. Ask questions. Oftentimes, we get in the habit of taking a hard line in negotiations. Instead, ask why. Use the 5 whys techniques. It's as simple as it sounds. Ask why 5 times until you get from positions to interests. Questions open up a discussion, while a hardline approach leads to arguments. And finally, focus on interests. We all have needs. Positions are the things that people want, like money. Get down to interests, the basic needs like safety, security, and feelings. Think of it this way. Picture an iceberg. What you see above the water are positions, like wages. It's what we can see. But below the waterline, what we can't see, what's not observable, are people's interests. We know that the majority of the iceberg is below the waterline. That's where interests are found. We can't see them, but they're far more impactful to the conversation and negotiation, so we have to seek to understand them. Finally, know your resources. There are several resources that will provide you with great assistance in managing labor relations in Minnesota's public sector. First, the League of Minnesota Cities is a membership organization dedicated to promoting excellence in local government. Check out the League's Human Resource Reference Manual, Labor Relations chapter at www.lmc.org. The Minnesota Bureau of Mediation Services promotes stable and constructive labor management relations and the use of alternative dispute resolution. Find training, arbitration decisions, and other resources at mn.gov/BMS. The National Public Employer Labor Relations Association, known as NPELRA, is the premier organization for public sector labor relations and human resource management professionals. Visit npelra.org. And finally, MPELRA, the Minnesota Public Employer Labor Relations Association, is your resource for labor relations training, information, and networking at www.mnpelra.org.